Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the school board meeting for Wednesday, July 10th at 7 o'clock. Would like to make note that we have all school board members present with the exception of Artie Archie and Will Gale, and Kevin Roach will be late. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I would like to note that Superintendent Ray is absent tonight, and we do have Assistant Superintendent Meg Parkhurst with us. Okay, item number 3 is the approval of the school board minutes for June 11th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Mayor, I move we approve the meeting minutes, school board meeting minutes dated June 11th, 2024.
There's been a motion made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Johnston. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, roll call vote. School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay, item number 4, there now are no adjustments to the agenda this evening. Item number 5, there are no correspondence. Takes us now to item 6, and that is a public session. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak to the school board, please step up to the podium, state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Okay, not seeing any members wishing to be recognized. Now takes us to item number 7, and that is the superintendent's report.
Good evening. I have several updates in conjunction with Superintendent Ray this evening. The first one is a follow-up on an item that has been discussed at 2 previous school board meetings related to hiring. While we were able to find 2 first-grade students that elected to attend at Fairfield School next year, we also had 3 new grade 1 enrollments at Young School. We did have the option to reassign those students to Fairfield instead of Young, but as you are all well aware of some of our transportation concerns, we have elected to move forward with the hiring of a 1-year position for grade 1, which will put us at 6 teachers at Young School for grade 1 and 5 teachers at Fairfield for grade 1. It will keep the class sizes commensurate at both schools, so we have some classes of 17 and a couple of 18 at Fairfield, and with those 6 teachers and our current enrollment will have us at classes of 17 and 18 at Young School as well. The only thing that we kind of discussed is that we are keenly aware that historically, I think it was 2015, 16, 17, we did have class sizes of 21 and 22 at Fairfield, so we will want to be ensuring that moving forward, if we encounter this again before our new buildings are available to us, that we are having equity between schools and adjusting those class sizes accordingly in those grade levels when we're seeing those numbers. Another update on hiring, other than that new position, which we will be posting shortly. We are fully staffed for our teaching staff. Bus drivers and ed techs are still acutely needed, so if families are interested in being in our schools, even if it's part-time or on certain schedules, we would certainly love to help folks get trained up for either of those positions. Huge thanks to a lot of our staff working on building work. We have the entryway being renovated and redesigned for better traffic flow and security at Saco Middle School. We have cafeteria windows that will be added to the hallway at Saco Middle School, carpet tile installation at Fairfield in the hallways, and then of course we have our custodial and maintenance staff working diligently even in the heat this week, which we're very grateful for deep cleaning of our buildings. Our new building project continues to move forward. We've now been able to work on next steps of closing on the land following the vote and have a date coming up in August for that closing, as well as some additional meetings regarding initiation of off-site work and beginning to figure out what the bidding timelines will be to put those projects out, as well as the specifications that will need to be included in those bids. Our student summer programming is well underway, just under half a week for our regular education summer school and some of our extended school year special services students having attended last week as well as this week. I believe we have just over 200 students involved in that programming. And as of that second day when I checked in with our director, Trask, for summer programming, we only had 2 snafus of a kiddo who didn't know they weren't supposed to be there or was there accidentally and needed to be accommodated in a different way. So that's a good record for us, and it was a great start to be able to have the staggered start with our ESY students starting earlier. It made for a much smoother entry and exit on those first weeks. Also, thanks to our nutrition staff, transportation staff, and all of the teachers and ed techs who have stepped up to support that summer programming. It can be tricky to want to extend your school year, but without their efforts, we wouldn't be able to serve these students that are desperately in need of that additional programming. We also have our outdoor program for middle school students up and running that is funded through a grant, and that is just kicking off. I haven't looked at the signups recently, but we were thrilled to be able to offer that, and did hear from our director there that they serve a mix of students through Saco, Biddeford, and Dayton, and were able to take some kiddos that had never been to the ocean before. So a really great opportunity to have students who may not have access to those experiences to be able to enjoy the beauty that's right in our own community in a really well supervised way. For our staff, we also have a lot of summer programming going on already in these 3 or 4 weeks since the end of school. We've had over 175 staff members. We did work tri-district between Saco, Biddeford, and Dayton to offer crossover programming so that we could increase choice and timing and access. To date, there's been a total of 1,500 hours of learning across those staff members. We've had some curriculum work in literacy and math, a training in the phonemic awareness resource that we use, a trauma-informed practices across cultures training, our climate change professional development in collaboration with the Ecology School that included an overnight opportunity there, grant funded, and then a multi-day resilience retreat where we were able to work with the Ferry Beach Conference Center to host that retreat, which was a great way to get some of our staff trained up. We also have additional work planned to come before the start of school around social studies curriculum work at the middle school, a main solutionaries project, which engages teachers to think about project-based learning in a service-minded framework, mentor teacher training, and a book study around making content accessible. Our central office leadership team was able to attend the commissioners conference held by the DOE, and Superintendent Ray is currently at a professional development opportunity, legislative opportunity down in Washington, D.C., so we're very excited to be able to have his regional voice impacting some of the national educational political landscape down there. Highlights of the DOE conference included some work that the state will be moving forward to develop a portrait of a graduate and a keynote by Tony Wagner, who's a speaker that talks about the future of learning and some innovative educational practices. We also were able to hear a little bit about the close of the second session of the 131st legislative session. A couple of top things that you may see impact school board policy are Title IX changes. Those changes were proposed by the federal government, rolled out around, I think, mid to late May, and Drummond Woodsum will be then populating a model policy for us to change our policies locally, and those do, even though we haven't gotten that model policy yet, those changes take effect beginning in August. So as soon as you see that model policy come out, our policy committee has shifted to have eyes on that before our August meeting so that we can make sure that that's ready for us to train up our own staff. The paid FMLA law that I believe Superintendent Ray has mentioned before is a statewide Department of Labor law, and we're continuing to work with the Department of Labor to understand how that will impact our business office and our human resources department, because staff will essentially be working with individual entities to figure out how individuals apply for the state-funded portion or which portions folks might elect to have already covered under current collective bargaining agreements. So we're still trying to iron out which types of leave fall into each of those categories and how that will impact, though we've already put into the budget starting in January 2025, the additional portion that will have to be contributed by employers. There's also the continued understanding of that shift of child development services to school departments. There are districts piloting as soon as next year that will shift special education services for 3- and 4-year-olds to school departments rather than the child development services. So that certainly creates a challenge for school departments and a huge opportunity to be able to have continuous service and have eyes on students before they're enrolled in our schools, as well as be able to have a better understanding of that programming and less transition for families who receive special programming at 3 and 4 years old to be able to have that programming continue. While we do work with CDS often on those transitions, having that oversight will allow a little bit more hands-on, eyes-on continuity of programming. A couple other items to watch are the minimum hourly wage requirements for ed techs and school support staff. That will start in the 25-26 school year at 125% of the state minimum wage for ed techs and 110% of state minimum wage for other school support staff. And for that first school year of 25-26, it will be funded through the EPS formula, so it will be fully funded by the state, and after that, districts will have to take that on. We should be in a pretty good place, though we haven't completed negotiations for ed techs, but with that timing and the EPS funding, we should be pretty well keeping pace with those percentages. There are a couple of resolves that will come out with respect to the legislature asking that things are studied, including increasing the funding ceiling for renovations, a look at the EPS formula. They'll present those findings in March of 25, which 2025 feels like a long way away, but a review of the statewide EPS funding formula and a study of that, that's a pretty quick turnaround, so we're certainly going to be involved as a school department in understanding exactly what we would like to see changed with that to make sure that it's a little less fluctuating from year to year and decrease those fluctuations based on property, et cetera. Another resolve to study some clean energy in schools, and then some other bills that did not pass in this session but are being held over, so we'll want to watch them closely, are a statewide mandate for a minimum salary for teachers. Again, I think we'll be in fairly good shape based on the numbers that are currently being presented and the timelines. We should be already above that, but definitely something to watch as those numbers change around the state. Another LD that may require schools to compost to a greater degree, which again isn't a bad thing, but may shift the way that we need to operationally work within our schools. And then a holdover on the review of the social studies standards. Happy to report that on June 14th, Aid for Saco Kids, which is a nonprofit organization that was spun up out of the school department as a way to have a nonprofit supporting some of the struggles that our students have that aren't covered by school funding, backpack programs, boots, jackets, the sorts of things that we would not be using taxpayer funds for, but certainly prevent students from participating fully, shin guards, cleats, all those things that make school all the more enjoyable and allow kiddos to access that. That fundraiser raised over $6,500, and it was great to see families out enjoying some mini golf and getting to hang out with some of our staff that were able to come out and volunteer on that day. We have a lot of ideas about how to expand and enhance that for next year, and we're aiming for the Swing into Summer theme to continue on like that week that school is out as a way to bring families out. I think this year the coordination with our school construction vote made it a little bit tricky to promote the event because we wanted to make sure that we were really leading with the importance of new school construction. Lastly, we wanted to share that we have an exciting development to be able to purchase new uniforms for our athletes at Saco Middle School, and we're looking towards that district unity as we have the new building project and have elected to go with a color scheme of blues and grays so that we can kind of continue to work towards all of our elementary schools coming on the same color palette and being united as a full district. And we're really looking forward to having our athletes be able to kind of step onto courts and pitches and fields in a way that makes them feel like they're really representing their entire community. And it's always fun to get something new to do that in a unified way. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for Meg? Okay, now takes us to item number 8, and that is the chair's report. School Board Chair Preble.
I do not have any news to report this evening. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, item number 9 is staff reports. There were no staff reports this evening. Item number 10 is the board subcommittee minutes. Item A is the Policy and Personnel Committee agenda. That meeting was held this afternoon at 5:30. There is a special meeting on 7/29 at 5 o'clock, and that will be held at Central Office. Item B is the Finance and Infrastructure Committee. The next meeting for that is August 28th at 4:30. And item C is the Curriculum Committee, and their next meeting is 7/29 at 4:30. There is no old business this evening. Now takes us to item 12, and that is the new business. Item A is new hires. There is a memo in your packet, and we do have 2 separate motions for the new hires. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor,
School Board Member Truman?
I move we approve the nomination of Teresa Olson, Director of Finance, and issue an administrator contract for the 2024-25 school year.
Motion has been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Preble. Any discussion on this item? Okay, roll call vote. School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay, and that takes us to the second motion.
Madam Mayor,
School Board Member Truman?
I move we approve the nomination of Erica Swift, young school teacher, Nicole Airy, pre-K special education teacher, Ben Higley, SMS social studies teacher, and Kelly Frey, SMS special education teacher, and issue a contract for the 2024-25 school year.
Motion has been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Johnston. Any discussion on those items? Okay, roll call vote. School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay, that takes us to item B, and that is the resignations. There is a memo in your packet, but there is no motion needed on those this evening. Item number C is the Special Education Audit Report.
I'd like to invite Dr. Clark to come up and share her memo with a report out on the Maine DOE's audit of special education, which we were pleased to get their feedback and look forward to hearing a little bit more.
Sorry. All right. So 3 years ago, we had an audit, and we were given a lot of corrective feedback in the area of transitions, in the area of goal writing. And so the state, in the subsequent 3 years, gave us another audit as is part of their practice. This time, they tried to make it a little bit easier on school districts, so we were able to select 55 IEPs for submission for overview. And then we also contributed towards an assessment with the Department of the Federal Coordination Programs, as well as a self-assessment, and then an on-site day during March 13th where our files were inspected as well. So this audit team was also, it also included Kelsey Netto, Abby Trask, and Karen Danley. They also worked very hard on this for quite a few months. So the results that we got were really encouraging. Out of the 55, there were 51 that were found to be 100% compliant, which is really important for us because it means overall we're meeting the goals and we're within the timelines we're supposed to be. The 4 that were found to be deficient were, as they consider, isolated deficiencies, so just clerical errors. That might have been a date that wasn't carried over or something that was copied over and not erased. So we were able to fix those. Unfortunately, we didn't make Tier 1. Tier 1 would have been a 6-year cohort, but we made it into the next tier. So we don't have another audit for 4 years. So Tier 2 is also really good. As you can see, it's less than 3 federal findings, 20 or fewer findings, and 5 or fewer. So the D1, B1 is the kind of the biggest federal and state offense where you just don't serve or you don't have IEPs that reflect direct services. We're looking for 70% or greater participation in alternative assessment, which we have a very high rate, which is pretty good. And then we want to make sure that any previous indicators that we had were closed within 1 year, which they were. So one area of deficiency that was noted across the board was that all the time that we spend in evaluations and doing evaluations, we have to make sure that those evaluations are linked directly to baseline, which are directly related to goals, which are directly related to progress. We can make sure that everything is articulated towards kids making progress and making sure we have evidence to back that. And so the state will be providing us district training, and we'll be providing individual building training specific to that goal. And we set department goals specific to making sure that we meet those goals next year. Overall, we're really excited about it. It gives us an idea of how we're doing, and the federal programs coordinator were wonderful to work with. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Meg?
I would just like to add my thanks to the Special Education Department for the additional work that goes into preparing for this, and as well as having that mindset of really wanting to be giving forward information so that we can receive information back from those folks about how to improve. And certainly with the turnover that we've seen in staff across all areas, special services in particular, it can be a challenge for us to gain consistency, and now we know exactly in which areas we're able to do that. So we look forward to continuing to improve.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that now takes us to item D, and that is to nominate a local delegate to the MSBA Annual Delegate Assembly. Meg, did you want to kind of give an overview of the assembly?
Yeah, I can give a little overview of that. So the Maine School Board Association in the state of Maine provides a delegates assembly. It will take place virtually on Saturday, October 19th, and it's an opportunity for regional schools and other city schools to get together and kind of hear from the MSBA directly, have a voice in some of their programming, and hear directly from them exactly what is going on at MSMA, MSBA. And we have the opportunity to nominate someone as the Saco School Board to participate in that. We can do that tonight, or if folks want to have an opportunity to think on that a little bit more, we can hold off until our August meeting to nominate and elect.
Does anyone have a motion to nominate a school board member, or would you like to hold off until the next meeting? Comments? School board member Johnston?
I do not at the moment have the inclination to nominate anyone, but I think that the board should probably talk amongst ourselves as to who feels that they would have the time, the ability. I'm sure that any one of us would be, would enjoy and, benefit from such participation, but I know we all have limitations on our time, so I think that although I know that we should make this decision fairly quickly, I think it probably could wait till the next meeting. Just my thoughts on it.
Yep, thank you. Okay, everybody in agreement that we'll hold off to the August meeting? Okay, so that will be moved out. Meg?
I just want to add one more date to that as the board considers their nomination. The delegation is on that October date. There is a regional meeting on Thursday, September 12th. Prior to that, that's 6 to 7:30 p.m. via Zoom, that they encourage attendees to participate in before the delegates assembly. That's not required, so you might just want to keep that in mind as you consider your availability.
Great, and all that information is in your packet as well.
Can I just ask?
Yep.
How long is that, the delegate assembly on the 19th of October? I know it starts at 9:30, but does anybody have any idea, like, how long those usually run?
I can find out.
Okay.
I'm not sure right now.
Okay.
School board member Johnston?
And another question for you, Meg, is on the September meeting, same sort of questions around, first of all, is that a virtual meeting? And secondly, I guess the same question that Sarah asked about timeframes around it would be helpful for us to make a decision.
Yeah, the September meeting they are both virtual. I know that for a fact, both the September and October. I don't know the length of the October meeting, but the September meeting is listed as 6 to 7:30 p.m. So that one does have an end time noted.
Can I
Right.
ask one more time, too, what the September date was again? I know you just told me, but I didn't write it down fast enough.
It is Thursday, September 12th.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, so that now takes us to item E, and that is the first reading of 2 policies. Is there a motion? School board member Johnston?
Thank you. I move we approve the first reading of policies IMB, teaching about controversial issues, and IHBEA-R, LAU plan program for multilingual learners.
Motion has been made by school board member Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by school board member Truman. Any discussion on the policies? School board member Johnston?
Thank you. So I have to be honest with the board and everyone, that I have had a difficulty with the teaching about controversial issues, in that I've been on the board for a while, and I've always been told that it's important to make sure that your policies are solid in terms of, being able to stand behind them, there's not ambiguities, et cetera. And we've worked through this policy on a couple of different occasions. I know that Assistant Superintendent Parkhurst is very anxious for us to get this on the books, because it has been highly advised by the MSMA that this is a policy we need to have on the books. So I totally respect that. And I think that I would love to see all of the board members actually trace our work with this policy because we have made some changes in what was the originally proposed policy. And I think that it's a very important policy for all board members to understand before we actually have a second reading. So this is the first reading tonight, and we have brought it forward with certain changes that we have already made. But I think that if all board members truly understood from the what we started with, what was on in front of us at the beginning, and followed our progress through several meetings, it would be very informative to them. I think that it is a very, very important policy to actually have done right. My major concern is that it, to me, was too open-ended at the beginning. It still is to some extent for me now. I won't today go into the details as to why, but it is a controversial policy about controversial issues, so it's controversial. And certainly we aren't, when it comes to controversy, we do not all see the same things. But I do believe that when we're talking about teaching about controversial issues and who and how those things are dealt with, it's very important to get it right. I would just say that in general, we want to have supervision over what happens in our schools. And so my concern about this policy is that we actually do have supervision in an appropriate way over what happens in our schools. So I hope everyone on the board and anyone in the public will actually look into how this has come along and think about what they think is appropriate for us to vote on for second reading. Thank you.
School Board Member Truman, then School Board Member Roach.
You know I was going to retort on this one. Beth did have a lot of concerns with this one, but I think the purpose of this policy is mostly to give some guidance for teachers, but also cover us as a district. And kids ask questions, and sometimes that puts people in a weird position. And also, I think some people can find things very controversial, as you said, that others may not. And so that someone can't come in and say, you shouldn't be teaching my kids these things. This allows us to have discussions age appropriate. So there's nothing specific. It needed to be left open-ended. It couldn't say anything specific like you can't talk about this or anything like that. It had to be sort of vague, but also allow our teachers to have these conversations as they come up, and so that someone cannot come in and say, that's controversial, you can't teach that to my student. So.
School Board Member Roach.
So the policy references curriculum appropriate. So would there be a case where this could be just assigned to a specific social studies class? Is that what it means by curriculum? Or, I mean, I don't see this applying to math. You know, math is math, right?
Right, we're talking health classes, social studies, maybe reading, like an ELA class, if there's a book that someone deems a controversial book. It covers all those things. Because social studies, especially like in the middle school, and very much in the high school, but middle school, where kids become more curious about the things around them, they could talk about certain things, or if they had a certain social, like as an example that we talked about, like if they had a social studies class where they needed to find a topic and give their side of what they think, or like not give their side, but like say they wanted to talk about, I couldn't even remember one of the topics that we had thrown out there, but to allow them to talk about, like say they wanted to talk about religion. They can talk about it as a broad scope, but not like this is the right religion, or this is it's to be able to talk about it as a broader scope of, you know, like if a student wanted to do a paper on the different types of religion. That should be.
Yeah.
It's just to broaden it so that a parent or another community member can't come in and say, I can't believe you talked about religion in class, whereas it might be a choice or just a broaden of horizons kind of thing, so.
Because like religion, race, sexuality, that can be covered. I mean, put it as controversial, announce it that, yeah, these topics are controversial, but even when I was a kid, it was like comparing to history to today, and today's controversial subjects come up. Yes, you can't promote a certain religion or overemphasize, of course, one race over another or anything, but certainly those topics should easily come up, and I'm glad it's specific to middle school, right? Age appropriate. Yeah, I'm not too afraid of this, but to Beth's point, it's a little bit still, I don't know. If you can be more specific a little bit, I don't know, to the class or not, I feel a little more comfortable on it.
I think the problem was too, is like, if they're talking about a particular topic and then a student says to the teacher, like, what do you think? Or gives the teacher a way to say, well, I believe, or they can say, this is a topic maybe you want to talk to your parent, like whatever they feel comfortable with in that respect. But it is something that is allowed to be discussed age appropriate. And Meg maybe will clarify that for me a little bit more.
Yeah, I think I would just say that the two main objectives of this policy are, one, to support the rights of students to have access to information, even when it may not be the information, like we don't want another student or another student's family shutting down the choice or the right of that student to study a controversial issue when there is a project of choice. So the student side and the student's right to explore a controversial issue that is within the scope of the curriculum is allowable. And then the second bucket that's important is, how can we provide some general guidance for our staff around objectively sharing information and not subjecting their own personal views on a controversial issue when discussing that with students, promoting the understanding of multiple sides of a controversial issue and students forming their own opinions. So it's namely around the rights of students to have access to information, even when it may be controversial, and the responsibility of teachers to present that information in as non-biased of a way, or give access to the two sides of the controversial issue in so much as they are able to, while still making sure that all of that is within the framework of the curriculum, and that too being a responsibility of the teacher to ensure that they're not just lobbing out things that have not been articulated in the curriculum as an important scope of study.
Thank you. You're more articulate with that than I could ever be. Thank you very much.
School Board Member Johnston?
I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't actually hear what you just said. I just said thank you because you're so articulate. Okay. All right, so I guess since we've gotten into this as deeply as we have, one of my big concerns about this is, and I'm quoting it, I think, accurately, the teacher has assured themselves that the controversial subject to be discussed belongs within the framework of the curriculum. I guess I can stop right there, because the part that concerns me here is that we have a hierarchy of supervision. And this particular line bothers me a lot because I don't understand why it would be fully under the auspices of a single teacher to assure themselves that this subject would be appropriate for the curriculum. I feel like there should be some sort of collaboration with a principal, somebody else, even another teacher. It just seems that it's too much control in one person's hands. And I'm not saying that anybody would misuse that. I just don't think it provides the proper supervision. So this is one of the reasons why this policy is still, I'm still unsettled about it. I mean, there are other reasons as well, but tonight we talked about student publications, which is another policy that we'll be bringing before the board soon. And there will be the requirement that if there are certain delineations between something very informal, like a poster on the wall to get people to come to an event, as Meg pointed out, or if you're talking about a student publication, which is a yearbook or some other type of publication, but that the student really needs to be supervised in terms of what that information is to be brought forward. So I guess I'm seeing a conflict between that being necessary, and I'm not saying that's wrong, but that being necessary and it not being necessary for an individual teacher to assure themselves that this is appropriate for whatever they're going to bring forth to the students. Just food for thought.
As far as the curriculum goes, that's something that we're trying to build in and make some continuity amongst the classrooms, if I'm understanding. So it would be something that would be hopefully discussed within that realm.
School Board Member Roach, you had something?
Would a statement saying with appropriate supervision, comma, handle that? Or, because, yeah, I'm a little bit like, has assured themselves, but they're working in a hierarchy of administration, and, the complaint might go to administration, and administration doesn't even know or yet. So, I don't know, that line, it's kind of self-evident that, again, I use the math teacher example. You're not supposed to go off this way and talk about things that aren't related to math, but I don't know, just some kicker in there.
So what you can possibly do is, if anyone reads through that policy and they have any concerns or questions, should be able to get it back to the policy committee, Meg and/or Superintendent Ray, for re-review. That's traditionally on council. If we have issues, we will throw out alternatives the way that you would like it, and then it can go back, be re-reviewed, and then the committee can then, if they find that a change is appropriate, they can change it, submit it back in for another reading. So you have the opportunity to take that information and bring it back to the policy committee for re-review.
Yep, just to respond, I think for me, what's been important is to just bring the situation, this particular policy, to the attention of the board, so that exactly
Okay.
what you said can happen.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
Certainly. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote. School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Roach?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston?
Yes, for first reading.
Yes. Motion on the first reading passes 5-0. Okay, that now takes us to item 13, and that is other information. I would like to throw out information regarding some family-friendly events that the city has coming up. On Tuesday, August 6th, from 5 to 7, we have National Night Out, and that again is being held at TA. And on Saturday, August 3rd, we have the Harbor Fest fireworks. Fireworks will start at approximately 8:30 down at the pier at Camp Ellis. And on August 4th, Sunday, we have the actual Harbor Fest Festival. And that will run from 9 to 4. If you need additional information, on the city website, sacomaine.org/harborfest, we have a list of all of the events, the timing, information on parking, transportation, and more importantly, we are looking for volunteers still as well. There is a link on the website if you would like to sign up to be a volunteer for the day. We have times, you can do an hour, 2 hours, the whole day if you'd like to. Whatever your schedule would suffice to that, it would be nice. I've thrown the opportunity out to the school board members, hoping to see some of them down there. So that is 2 fun family events that we have coming up in August. Okay, item number 14, there is no executive session. Item 15 is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by School Board Member Preble, second by School Board Member Truman. Roll call vote. School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Roach?
Wave that flag, yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn at 7:47 passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.